And we're live. Um, I'm Stephen Bradshaw. I am a licensed psychotherapist, a somatic experiencing practitioner, and a certified group practitioner or psychotherapist. And I started the Beyond Psychology Center, and this Healing Accelerator is our first program that we're offering. So this is a chance to be part of the founding cohort of this kind of flagship group that will hopefully run for many years. The group is for 15 to 20 people and will run over 14 weeks. 2 of the weeks will be off weeks when you'll connect with your accountability partners. I'll tell you more about that. So the Beyond Psychology Center, the idea behind the center is that we're beyond tradition, beyond kind of Western egoic identification and individualism, and that this ways of being that are beyond conventional identity in the West that allow for healing to happen. And the actual structure of this course is based on a combination of somatic experiencing and internal family systems, and then drawing on depth psychology. But the bones of the course are internal family systems, and the idea is to give it a very simple map. So we know where we are in the psyche, we know what we're doing, and then you could say the bones are IFS, and then the flesh is somatic experiencing. So there's a, the IFS as a map is a kind of very simplified model of a protective layer that kind of thinking strategies to keep you safe that surrounds an emotional core where our kind of pain is kept, where traumas or burdens are held, and the more pain we have there, the more the protectors protect. And so the course aims to get into the underlying pain to help you shift your system so that the protectors don't need to protect so hard. Yeah, so the course is intended for people who have somatic conditions, mind-body kind of issues, like different kinds of chronic ailments, but also depression, anxiety, relationship difficulties, basically anything that you feel you would like to shift in your life. And yeah, it's already quite open, and the first group will be about setting intentions. And you will each kind of pick something that we personally want to work on and want to bring to the group, and we'll see kind of all the different issues that are brought in and how the different threads interact. Yeah, and I've seen in my own practice pretty significant changes and healing events to happen, and no guarantees what can happen, but I already have seen quite dramatic changes, and things that were not anticipated by the person. And so we cultivate the right conditions to allow for something to happen beyond our control, which has not been able to happen, which is a healing event or a miracle. And if we can cultivate the right conditions over this period of time, we call in the right kinds of support that could actually make something happen for you. And this group is designed for people who work or are busy or maybe in stressful relationships. And the idea is, how do we awaken in culture or become mystics in the marketplace, as Thomas Hübl says, and how do we bring a mindset that's different to our lives, and how does this group start to anchor something for you that brings in a new way of being into your current life? And so the idea is that you don't need to necessarily go to a retreat center to heal and change, but that we can actually work with the substrate of urban existence. And so even if you feel like you don't have a lot of time for this, that's the expectation. We're working within the constraints of a dense urban existence. Each week we're going to meet for an hour on Friday mornings. There'll also be a Facebook group that everyone will be invited to participate in. and everyone will be assigned a partner. And the idea with the partners is that you check in between sessions, and then the off weeks you'll check in with your partner, and that you help to support each other. You're not being each other's therapists, you're just being accountability partners, kind of reporting in what you've been doing, what's been working, what's not working, and just keeping a very basic kind of check in place. And then there are core videos that we'll be posting along the way, things like the minimum viable healing plan, kind of like what are you doing? What is the minimum that you're doing given this dense life we all live that's going to produce the change? And so there's a kind of plan that we're going to all kind of sign up to. We're all going to make one for ourselves, and there'll be a video on that. And then also there'll be videos with actual practice, so somatic authoring practices where we drop into our experience more, and we start to kind of surface more from the body and from the unconscious that's not part of our current identity structure. So that's most of the introduction. So over the 12 weeks, we'll start with kind of discussing what is accelerating healing. How do you do that? How do you evolve quickly? How do you kind of get out of an unhelpful pattern that's not working for you? We'll set intentions in that first group. What do you want to happen for yourself? And then we'll sort of put in place a plan of how you're going to help to potentiate that. Then we're going to create a collective healing field together. So we're going to tune in to our systems in a way that supports a shared holding, what's called a field, where we'll all be tuning in and supporting, what's happening in the group. And, sometimes that will be demo work. And it's really the power of the group and the power of us all tuning in together that potentiates a lot of the kind of healing that will happen. So there'll be kind of some instruction on that, and we'll do some work together. Then we're going to talk about self-energy, which is an IFS concept, and is similar to states of no self in Buddhism, or dropping below protective identities, and how to be in self-energy more of your week. And the goal of this course is to get to a place where you're experiencing some kind of self-energy virtually continuously throughout your week. And it may be disrupted every now and then, but that you can get back to it quickly. And that's really what enables the healing to happen. And self-energy is actually a felt experience, and we'll get into kind of what it feels like, how to make that happen, and it starts to become something that you are quite aware of. You're either in it or you're not. Then we'll talk about protectors, how to work with different protectors. There's also the nugget, which is a weekly email, which you should be receiving, is going through a whole bunch of different kinds of protectors. And the point is not to become an expert on all the different ways the psyche can arrange, but to identify what the main patterns that your psyche put in place are. So when things were overwhelming, or you weren't properly held as a child, or that things were not safe enough, or conditions were not ideal for you, what were the protective strategies you came up with? And really learning to identify those, and then learning to identify them as somatic or postural ways of being. And then we can identify when you're in a protector or when you're in self-energy. Then we're going to talk about some other, kind of healing aspects, the inner healer, the creative genius, the emotional core, different things. Some of these are things that I've come up with that are related to internal family systems and somatic work, kind of melding the two together. But really what I've seen when people get onto the right track, what are the types of things that start to work for them that are, kind of patterned across many different clients. The similar things start to happen. So we'll talk about what those are. Then we'll go into working with anger, working with grief, and working with resistance. When you feel like things are not working, you feel stuck, what to do. We'll talk about healing through relationships. So what are healthy relationships, how to develop your relationships in ways that are more supportive to your biology, so that your relationships are not part of the problem, but are actually a source of safety and support and reciprocity. And then we'll talk about unburdening, which is IFS's, you could call it a ritual or a way of working with the underlying pain that's in the system and how to let go of that pain. And then we'll do a healing ritual together in the second last session, where we kind of ritualistically go through some things together that will be intended to allow you to let go of the things that are not working. And then lastly, we'll have an integration session. We'll find out what's kind of happened for people, what's not happened, how you're going to take this work forward, and integrate it into your life, or hold on to gains, or hold on to something that's starting. And then I will let you on your way to live your life. So I appreciate you being interested in this group or joining this group. We still have some spaces, and the group will probably, I expect I'll probably cap it at 25 if it were to get that big. And yeah, that's about it. I look forward to meeting you and working together. Cheers.